When my grandmother passed, my aunt said she died intestate. She sold the house and split it between her kids. "You never lived here anyway," she said. But I remembered the drawer Grandma once told me never to open until she was gone. Inside was a locked tin, a thumb drive, and a signed document that revealed. When my grandmother died, I lost the only real parent I ever had. I was 35, working as an office manager in Raleigh, still single, no kids. But as far back as I could remember, Grandma's house in Greensboro was home. I lived with her most of my childhood, while my mother bounced between boyfriends, states, and bad decisions. Grandma gave me structure, safety, and love. She never had much money, but she had pride, and she took care of me like I was her own. My aunt, Denise, was her younger daughter. Growing up, I always saw her as the unstable one. She'd flit in and out of town, sometimes sober, sometimes not. She had 2 boys. My cousins Darren and Jamal, both of whom Grandma also helped raise whenever Denise disappeared for weeks at a time. But somehow, Denise always came back when there was something to take. When Grandma died, it happened fast. A stroke in her sleep. Peaceful, they said. But it didn't feel peaceful to me. It felt like everything good in my life had suddenly gone cold. The day after the funeral, I was standing in Grandma's driveway, still trying to hold myself together, when Denise pulled up in her SUV. She got out with her usual swagger, her nails done, talking fast and loud. "So, I got the house handled," she said casually, like we were discussing groceries. "What do you mean, handled?" "It's sold. Already in contract. Closing in a week." I couldn't speak. She must have read the look on my face. There wasn't a will. I checked. "It's mine now. I'm splitting the money between the boys. You never really lived here anyway." That's when it hit me. She thought I wouldn't fight. She thought because I didn't technically live in the house at the time of Grandma's death, I had no claim. But what she didn't know, what she never knew, was that Grandma had told me something different. It was almost exactly a year before she passed. I'd taken a weekend off to visit her. She was quieter than usual that morning, just staring at her cup of coffee. Then she said, "There's a drawer in my bedroom. Bottom right. Don't open it unless I'm gone. And don't trust your aunt with what's inside." I never forgot that. Even though it scared me a little, I remembered. So that night, after Denise left and the house was quiet, I went back. I still had my old key. The new owners hadn't taken possession yet, and I didn't care if they had. I walked straight through the front door, like I used to when I was a teenager. Her room smelled the same. Lavender and fabric softener. I found the drawer and pulled it open. Inside was a small tin box with a lock, a thumb drive in a labeled Ziploc bag, and a large white envelope marked in her handwriting. Private, for my name only. My hands were shaking as I opened the envelope. It was a will. Signed, notarized, with witnesses. It left the house, the land, and all personal property inside to me. Not to Denise. Not to the cousins. To me. At the bottom, she had handwritten, "You showed up. You helped me. This house is yours." I sat on the bed and cried. The thumb drive had 3 video files. I opened the first one on my laptop. It was Grandma, sitting in that same bedroom, talking to the camera. If you're watching this, it means I've passed. I couldn't trust Denise with this. She's already taken so much. But you were always there when I needed you. I want you to have the house. I want you to have everything in it. The second video was a walkthrough of the house, pointing out furniture, family heirlooms, and a few hidden places she kept money or documents. The third video shook me the most. She looked straight into the camera and said, "If Denise tries to claim anything, call this lawyer." She has a copy of the will too. The tin box held the same attorney's business card, with a handwritten sticky note. "If anything happens to me, call her." There were also letters, copies of checks Grandma wrote to Denise over the years. $3,000 here. $8,500 there. One was for $27,000. None of it was ever repaid. and bank statements showing Denise had added herself to one of Grandma's accounts 2 years before, without her full mental capacity. I knew then I wasn't just going to let this slide. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Denise stole from Grandma while she was alive, and now she was stealing from her after death. The next morning, I called the lawyer, and that was the moment everything started to turn. The lawyer's name was Deborah Langston. Her office was a small converted craftsman house near downtown Greensboro. She answered on the second ring, and I told her who I was. There was a pause, then she said, "I was wondering when I'd hear from you." She already knew. Grandma had come to her months before she passed. She'd drawn up the will, signed it properly, and kept a copy in her files. Deborah told me it was ironclad. She was worried this would happen, she said. Your aunt had tried to pressure her into adding her to the deed. Your grandmother refused. I remember sitting in my car outside the lawyer's office, holding the phone so tight my fingers hurt. I asked her what I should do next. We'll file a petition to void the sale. That property transfer was illegal. If she sold it based on false representation, without probate or a valid claim, it can be reversed. It sounded too good to be true, but I agreed. Deborah got to work. Meanwhile, Denise was acting like she'd won the lottery. I heard from an old neighbor that she was bragging all over town about finally getting what she deserved and kicking the leech niece out of the picture. Her sons had already bought new cars with their shares of the sale money. When she found out I was contesting the sale, she called me. You greedy little bitch, she snapped. That house was never yours. You weren't even around. She only kept you around for chores. I didn't argue. I just said, the will says otherwise. So does the lawyer. Then she hung up. A week later, I got served. Denise had filed a restraining order against me, claiming I was harassing her, threatening her, even stalking her kids. It was complete fiction, but I had to spend money. I didn't have to fight it. My lawyer got it thrown out, but the stress was crushing. Then she went further. She told our extended family I was forging documents. She said I manipulated Grandma in her final days. Some cousins stopped returning my calls. One even told me I should be ashamed for taking advantage of an old woman. It was like watching my whole support system collapse, one person at a time. Deborah warned me, this will get worse before it gets better. People like your aunt don't let go quietly. Then we got a call from the buyers of the house. Young couple, newlyweds, had just moved in. They were panicked. The sale was under dispute now, and they might lose everything. I felt sick for them. They didn't deserve to get caught in this mess. But legally, the house was mine. Their lawyer told them to seek damages from Denise. And that's when it started to unravel. Turned out, Denise forged her own version of a will, an obviously fake one, typed up without witnesses or notary. When pressed, she couldn't even name where she supposedly got it from. It was enough to convince the court to pause the property transfer. Then we found out she lied on the seller's disclosure form. Said she was the sole heir and no other will existed. That was fraud. Deborah filed a full legal complaint. The court date was set. Denise doubled down. Claimed Grandma was mentally unfit when she signed the will. Claimed I pressured her. Claimed everything she could. We pulled Grandma's medical records. She had a full mental evaluation 2 weeks before signing, clear and competent. Piece by piece, the lies fell apart. But I still hadn't told Denise one last thing, the videos. Not yet. Because I knew once I did, there'd be no going back. And I wanted her to see it in court, on a screen, in front of the judge, in front of everyone she lied to. She stole my grandmother's money. She lied about the will. She tried to destroy my name and my sanity. But she had no idea the biggest blow was still coming. 2 weeks before the court date, Deborah called me. There's something you need to see, she said. Come by the office. Now. I drove straight there, my stomach twisting. I thought maybe the buyers had sued, or Denise had pulled some new trick. Instead, Deborah handed me a thick envelope. Discovery came in. These are Denise's financials. Court ordered. Inside were printouts of her bank accounts, loan applications, even Venmo transfers. Deborah had highlighted several entries. One in particular jumped out. 2 wire transfers, each $20,000 sent from the proceeds of the house sale. One to Darren. One to Jamal. Your cousins, she said, used their inheritance to start shell companies. Fake businesses. No operations, no services. Just accounts to move money. She flipped to the next page. And guess who they paid? Denise. Monthly payments labeled as consulting fees and property research. Thousands of dollars filtered through fake businesses so it wouldn't look like she was keeping the money. This wasn't just greedy, Deborah said. This was a coordinated scam. They knew exactly what they were doing. It hit me then. Grandma's death hadn't just triggered opportunism. It was a plan. They'd probably been circling for years, waiting for the moment she was gone to cash in. That's why Denise was so fast to sell the house. That's why her sons were suddenly flush with cash. They weren't just robbing me. They were laundering money badly. Deborah added, I filed a request to bring this to the DA's office. There could be criminal charges. Part of me wanted to celebrate. Finally, the truth was being laid bare. But another part of me was numb. These weren't strangers. These were people I'd grown up with. Darren and I had played Nintendo together. Jamal once split his Halloween candy with me when I cried. And now here they were, setting up ghost businesses to funnel money their mom stole. I told Deborah, I want them in that courtroom. All of them. She nodded. The day of the hearing, Denise showed up like it was a brunch meeting. New hair, new nails, new purse. Her sons walked in with her, cocky as hell, wearing suits like they were headed to a wedding. They had no idea. When Deborah started playing the video of Grandma speaking, the room went dead quiet. The judge leaned forward. Denise started shaking her head before the video even finished. Then Deborah laid out the fake will, the bank transfers, the shell companies. It took all of 20 minutes for the judge to start asking Denise's lawyer about fraud implications. But the moment I'll never forget? When Deborah pulled out the final video, a recording of Grandma saying, if Denise, Darren, or Jamal try to claim anything, understand this, I already knew what they were planning. I hoped they wouldn't. But if they do, I want you to fight. The judge looked straight at Denise. Ma'am, he said, you've got bigger problems than this property dispute. Denise went pale. Darren actually tried to speak, but got shut down fast. The courtroom was silent. And I knew it wasn't over yet, because the court could only do so much. But I had more planned. I wasn't just going to get the house back. I was going to take everything they built on that stolen money and burn it to the ground. The judge ruled in my favor. The sale of the house was voided. Full title transferred to me. The buyers were refunded from a court-held escrow funded by the lawsuit. Denise was ordered to pay all court fees and restitution to the buyers, plus damages. But that was just the beginning. The fraud investigation went forward. Deborah submitted the financial records and business details to the district attorney's office. Within 2 months, subpoenas were issued for Denise, Darren, and Jamal. They thought they'd walk away, that maybe the court would just fine them and be done. But the paper trail was solid. Wire fraud, tax evasion, financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. They'd been sloppy and greedy. Their shell companies weren't even legally registered in some cases. The IRS got involved. Darren was arrested first, picked up at the fake office address listed on one of their bank accounts. Jamal turned himself in the next day. Denise tried to claim it was all her son's doing, that she had no idea, but the signed bank documents showed otherwise. She was indicted for elder financial exploitation and conspiracy to commit fraud. And that still wasn't enough for me. See, while the criminal case moved forward, I made my next move, civil suits. I sued each of them, Denise, Darren, and Jamal, individually for damages. I had the will, I had the videos, and I had the proof they'd taken what didn't belong to them. My lawyer argued that if not for their lies, I could have sold the house on my terms, preserved my credit, and kept my job. I'd taken unpaid leave during the mess. The emotional stress, legal costs, and reputational damage were all on them. We won every suit. The court froze their bank accounts and garnished future wages. The house was officially mine, but I didn't move in right away. I hired a contractor to restore it, paint it back to Grandma's colors, fix the porch swing she used to love. I even found an old armchair at an estate sale that looked like the one she always sat in to read. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I contacted a local paper. They ran the story. Family stole house from grandmother's legal heir. Caught in fraud scheme. They used real names, real court records, pictures of the house, and even a still from the courtroom video of Grandma speaking. The public backlash was swift. Denise lost her job at the city permit office. Jamal's employer fired him within days. Darren was already looking at state prison time, so there wasn't much left to lose. I didn't feel joy reading the article. Not really. What I felt was something deeper. Something final. They'd turned my grandmother's death into a cash grab. They thought I'd walk away, because I wasn't loud or flashy. They thought I'd forget what she said about that drawer. But I didn't. And when the judge handed me the final ruling, granting full financial restitution and affirming the will, he looked at Denise and said, "You didn't just break the law. You broke trust. And you underestimated someone who clearly loved her grandmother more than you ever did." That stayed with me. Now, years later, the house is mine. Not just legally, but truly. I visit often. Sometimes I sit on the porch in that swing, coffee in hand, and I remember the woman who gave me everything. My revenge wasn't rage. It wasn't violence. It was patience, persistence, proof, and the satisfaction of knowing that every lie they told came back to crush them. Exactly like Grandma knew it would.